Welcome to the Activations with JJ Ascension Diaries, Part 11. Thank you again for joining me today to listen to some of my stories, my personal experiences with Ascension. If you are new to the podcast or to this series, basically what I've tried to do here, and this is again my 11th part of this series, so if you haven't listened to the other ones, I highly suggest you do so. But what I'm really trying to do is just tell my own experiences and then maybe make it a little bit easier for you to go through yours because you feel validated. I think that so many of us going through Ascension feel quite alone and almost like we are the only ones on the planet going through this because we don't really talk about this stuff, right? Luckily, we have the internet. It's not like the olden days when they were trying to find each other and maybe they had to hide out and there were only a few. And if there were, the people who tried to be mystics or do things in the metaphysical realm, they were often condemned to and had punishments for doing those things. But nowadays, we can just hop on the internet and there's lots of tools for us. Speaking of tools and ways to gather, I want to make sure I mention that I am doing monthly soul family gatherings, and these are so fun. I've done 2 already in the month of September 2021, and they have been incredible. The energy and the activation that happens in a group setting like that, it's just something I cannot duplicate here just on the podcast with me talking to you. There is a power of the people gathering. So if you're drawn to do those, please check out the comments section or the description of this video if you're listening on YouTube. And you can see there's a link to be able to find out more information about those. If you're on the podcast, just make sure that you can message me somehow. You can do that on Gmail, activationswithjj@gmail.com, or on my Instagram, which is activationswithjj. Before I keep going, I just want to make sure that I ask you, if you have a quick moment, to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're listening on YouTube. If you're listening to this as a podcast, I would love it for you to be able to go to my YouTube channel because I feel like pretty much everybody has access to YouTube. Hop over to my YouTube channel and make a comment if you feel something resonates with you about this video. I really want to get the interaction going because I feel like as we start to relate to one another, our soul family gathers, our soul group gathers, those that vibrate similar to us are gathering here with my videos and with what I put out. And you will probably get a lot out of just making comments and having people respond. So that's my invitation to participate, to co-create beyond just listening, although I do feel you listening. And I can tell you're there, and I really appreciate it. But I will go ahead and head into the rest of this Ascension Diaries. The topic for today has been on my mind quite a bit because over the last little while, I have been experiencing some people that are close to me transitioning beyond the veil and passing away. And so I think it's fun and very appropriate to talk about it. And again, the word fun, I don't know if that really describes it, but I think it does because in our society, there is so much fear and a stigma around death, which I tend to refer to as transitioning. And I think that it's important for us to talk about it from a spiritual perspective and do it without a religious connotation, because I think most of us have been taught about the afterlife and death from a religious perspective, from a structured, hierarchical perspective. And it's fine if you want to hold on to some of those things that you've been taught about what death is. I feel like you can take what you've learned and maybe some of the things I have to say and put them together and just enrich your knowledge about this subject. So again, I'm just here to share my opinion. my experiences, etc., etc. And then, you can take this and do what you want with it. But it's, with the times we live in, there are a lot of people going out of this planet, going off the planet, transitioning off the planet. I don't like to use the word die. As you can tell, it's just so final. And it's not final. Let me talk to you for a second about where I get my ideas about, death and dying and what it means. So first of all, I was raised in Christianity, and there's a ton of stuff that I got out of that I still hold on to. I do believe there's a realm after this one. And as you all know, because I tap into all kinds of different things all the time, I experienced a very close loved one dying when I was very young. And so I had to face what that meant from a very young age. But I guess I have an old soul. I had some of that knowledge already. I know for those of us who are like what you consider rainbow or indigo children, if you've ever heard that term, we already kind of have that knowledge that everything's fine, that this is just part of a big picture here on this planet. And so I was never really afraid. I definitely suffered a lot of emotional trauma because it was someone so important in my life that normally when a person that plays that role in your life dies, psychologically, it's very, very scarring to a person. So I've done a lot of healing work regarding that. And I think that a lot of what I've taken on has been generational. And so it's not just things from my life, but it could be from past lives, and it could be from, my ancestors. But dealing with grief and dealing with death is the main type of work, healing work I've done. Just reconciling with it and understanding it from a different perspective. So I've always had a pretty strong sense of people who've passed on. And in particular, the one that I lost at a young age, I continued to feel his presence throughout my life frequently. And I think that really helped to sharpen my skills with clairvoyance and clairaudience, the ones that I use today. I think it's a really good place to start because we knew the person here on this planet, and then just so you know, they are accessible. Like, they're really accessible. What I try to do is intention that I will meet or communicate with or connect with a higher version of that person. Let's say the person had a really traumatic life. They were dealing with a lot on the earth, and they left. Maybe they died, they took their own life. Maybe they had a lot of problems, mental illness and things, trauma. If you're going to talk to them, you're going to want to tap into their higher self to really get a grasp on what's going on in the big picture. A lot of this is super related to Dolores Cannon's work. And the reason for that is because what you notice with her is so much of that perspective when she taps into the subconscious is what she calls, I call it like the higher self. And when she does that, she's really able to have them paint a picture of what it's really like to transition. In her books, she has the people who were going through their past lives talk about what it was like when they died from the spirit perspective, from the soul perspective. So she has them describe, oh, I'm leaving my body. Oh, I see it down there. Oh, look, I'm going to this light, or I'm going to this warm place, or I'm going to somewhere else. So I highly recommend you take and read a lot of her books. The, Convoluted Universe Book 5, which was the last one she did, has a ton. So if you want to start there, it sounds weird to start at the end, but I would definitely start at that one. I was just reading it the other day, and there are lots of things in there about death and what it's like, and just the variety. Oh my goodness, it's crazy. There is a huge variety of what happens. So you want to hear my personal opinion? My personal opinion is this. We create our own reality. We create it here on this planet. We create it after we die. So people who are religious, who have near-death experiences, and you hear them say, I saw angels, I saw God, I saw Jesus, whatever it is. Guess what? They did. Because we create our own realities, and they got to create what was best for them. I had a close family member have a near-death experience, and they saw, they saw God or Jesus. They actually didn't know who it was, but they assumed that's who it was. And they'd ask them, do you want to go or do you want to stay? And this person also saw what they believed to be grandchildren or great-grandchildren or posterity that hadn't been born yet. That was still, their souls were still not embodied, and that they were kind of influencing their decision, or they were there to support them, really was what it was. But see, the concept that that person had of what you do when you die came from a lot of a religious background too. So I think somebody without any of that knowledge might have a different experience. It doesn't really mean it's better or worse, honestly. I just remember having this conversation with another family member after they died, and I could tell at that point, I don't think I was very aware about tapping into their higher self to to just talk to them, and see where they were at, where their mind was. But I feel like that person was really still sticking to what their concept of heaven was after death, after they died, the concept they had when they were on this planet, when they were on Earth. So I felt like I was tapping into probably what I could call just a different version of that person that wasn't as expanded, just a sort of an aspect of their soul that was still tied to the planet. If you read Dolores Cannon, if you want to go into karma and past lives and multiple lives and all that, Dolores Cannon in her latter books, in the last one, I believe, they basically said there's no such thing as karma anymore. So for the people who are going around saying that there's karma, there can be karma if you want it, but there doesn't have to be. So this planet has left the karmic cycle, according to what Dolores Cannon had channeled. Well, her patients had channeled. And so that's something interesting to consider, because when we talk about death, we talk about, we could talk about being reborn into another life, et cetera, et cetera. Is there karma? Is there things you need to pay? There's not. So you're not going to have to relive out some of these things that you're doing right now, unless you choose to, I guess. But there's no such thing as karma. And I think karma has a lot to do with duality anyways. And since we're into more non-duality, into this new earth, into this new, in this ascended earth, and this ascended planet and existence that we're going into, it's about non-duality. So really all is one. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and the everything. It's just all one. There's no judgment being passed on it, saying you have to live out this lesson. It's like, well, do you want to do this? Do you want to have this experience? So that's just kind of my 2 cents about karma. I guess I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that in there. In addition to that, it's been really interesting as I've dealt with people in my life who were older, and helping them to release fear and heal some areas that were preventing them, I think, I don't know, that's just my opinion, but preventing them from being okay to die, giving themselves permission to transition, right? So I don't know if you've ever known anybody who's in that boat. I don't really want to say that they should have or could have or would have, because I do believe everything happened as it should. I don't think that it was a mistake, the way that they sort of held on or had fears. But I do know that going into this new earth and into a higher consciousness, we're going to treat death differently. We're going to transition differently. It's just going to be different. Do I know what that looks like right now? No, because this is my Ascension Diaries, and I'm not going to channel anything right now to find that out. But maybe another episode, I will. So what did I go through recently? I just want to kind of lay it out for you. you all know where I'm at, right? If you've listened to my podcast, you know where I'm at spiritually, mentally, all this. I share a lot with you. You know I channel frequently. I'm always tapping into other dimensions. I am a medium. I've definitely brought through loved ones for people who've wanted to connect. This is how I do it in my sessions. I just invite whatever wants to come through that's for their greatest and highest good. And sometimes it's a family member, and sometimes it's like a starseed family member. It's not from this planet. And sometimes it's a family member. It's like grandma from this planet. So that's how my sessions work. I don't sit there and say, well, I'm going to channel every dead person you want me to. I just channel whatever's for their greatest and highest good and whatever loving messages. And they're always super loving messages. And I love that. So I've never had, well, I have had some experiences with souls that were wandering the earth. I could go into that with you. Souls that were wandering the earth on a lower vibration. Wow, that's a whole other experience I don't even want to go into right now. I think I actually mentioned it in another Ascension Diaries because when I first started this journey, I think I was talking about like any negative experiences I'd had with like what you could be considered like demons or evil spirits or whatever. At this point, I never ever have any experiences with them because I set the intention to hold my vibration at a certain place and it's like there's no effect there. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But anyways, going back to my experience recently. Okay, so knowing what we know, I've had people, well, I think I've just read this, but people talk about like, it's really hard not to be sad at a funeral because you'd really know what's going on. I get it. Like we know like, well, they're just in the next room. It's not a big deal. Like I can talk to them right now, right? However, there is something about this human experience we've chosen to have where I did experience grief. Did I cry? Yes, I cried. Am I having experiencing some up and down emotions right now as an after effect, some trauma? Yes, I am. Just because we know all about this stuff doesn't mean we're not having a human experience. So I want to remind you of that because when you go and beat yourself up like, well, I should know better. Like, I know what's going on. Why am I so sad? Why am I so distraught about somebody dying? I know this isn't the end. Like, some people don't. I can't not know that. I just do. I've known it since the day I was born. Some people have a thicker veil than other people. When I say veil, I just mean ability to see other dimensions, an ability to know and understand stuff and remember stuff that their soul knows. Okay? So then that's me, and I can't unknow that. Like I just do. I just know it. I've had some times where I kind of felt like I sort of tuned out. I was just talking with somebody about this the other day. Like I had a whole year, probably 2 years ago. You guys are going to think this is crazy. But 2 years ago, I had a big awakening about 3 years ago. A big opening, a big awakening, kundalini, whatever you want to call it. Then I got into lots of like working in the spirit realms and astral traveling and all this kind of thing. Then all of a sudden, the switch just turned off. And it had to do with people I was associating with. We kind of stopped working with them. And I didn't feel the desire to do any of the stuff I'm doing right now. Whatever I do on this podcast, all of that. Tapping into other things and channeling and all this. I stopped completely for an entire year. Radio silence from everywhere. Didn't want to connect, just wanted to live right here in this body, in this flesh, and on this dirt. And be okay with it. And not be, quote unquote, consciously connected. I was subconsciously connected, just not consciously connected. So if you ever feel like you're kind of in a void, or if you've had times where you feel like you're in a void, it's all just part of the journey, to be completely honest with you. It's all just part of the journey. Like now I look back and I go, that was super interesting. I was kind of like agnostic atheist. I really was, 100%. But like it wasn't depressing. So it was fascinating to have that perspective and to live from that place. I think one of the reasons I needed to go through that was because I needed to deprogram from some organized religion stuff that had painted a picture of that kind of a life being so horrible. And it wasn't that bad. It was just life. Like, it was just the way it was. Anyway, again, I'm just rambling a little bit, but I thought that would be interesting to share with you because it did come up last week with somebody I was in a conversation with. So that's kind of my thoughts on death and on the afterlife and even on just spirituality in general. I hope that something I said resonated with you. And if it did, go ahead and make a comment down below. Let me know what your experiences with transitioning or death, passing away, whatever you want to call it, has been. Let me know. What are your experiences before you had a spiritual awakening, after you had a spiritual awakening, during a spiritual awakening? Did it cause a spiritual awakening to experience and witness maybe somebody dying or something? I don't know. A lot of us start connecting with other dimensions through people who've passed on, especially people who are empaths. We start connecting that way. So thank you again for listening. Take a quick second, like and subscribe, and I will see you at the next Ascension Diaries. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.